Some people believe holding on and hanging in there are signs of strength. However, there are times when it takes much more strength to let go and then do it. Ryan's point of view. They say falling in love is a wonderful thing, but imagine falling in love with your best friend. It's the best feeling in the world. We had known each other for the longest time. All thanks to his mom, who sold the house next door of theirs to us after my parents got married and moved to Seoul. We naturally became best friends since we were neighbors and we went to the same schools. Both of us fell madly in love with each other when I turned 16. I still vividly remember the day he finally confessed about his feelings. It felt unreal and I was scared because I knew if I wouldn't just lose a boyfriend, I'd lose my best and first friend. You know, if we go through with this, would get married or break up, right? I asked him. He took a long pause and moved close to me. Then I'd just marry you after I land a job. This was 10 years ago. Little did we know, things changed so drastically after we got discovered by an agency. He was supposed to take over his father's company, but his parents supported his dream of becoming an idol. And being the supportive girlfriend that I was, or always I tried to be, I watched him becoming something I never thought he would be. He put all of his efforts in it, and I was so happy when the group finally got the recognition but they deserved. He kept his promise right after they debuted. We decided to get married because we thought that would be easier with all the traveling and long distance. At that point, it was the right thing to do. Being a partner to an idol was not easy, especially when everything had to be done in absolute secret. We hid our relationship and our wedding had to be done oh so discreetly to the point where there were not a lot of photos because the agency wanted to make sure that the news did not leak to the public. I was proud of him and as much as was supportive of what he was doing. We always got into a fight and it was mostly because I couldn't understand why do we have to keep everything so discreet. Our dates were mostly spent at each other's houses and we were never once seen in public. He got tired of us fighting and his agency finally gave a green light to announce our marriage, and honestly we were not surprised with the amount of backlash that we received because we saw the treatment 𝐲𝐢𝐶 got after his news got out. So we were prepared. Maybe he was prepared because I was sure as hell was not. We tried to make it work but I was getting tired of sayings and over having any privacy after the announcement, so both of us took an easy way out. We got a divorce after 3 years of marriage. Damn you, Jungkook. You promised we'd either break up or get married. Getting a divorce was never part of the deal. I'm going to miss you and Era, Mrs. Jones said while hugging Era's tiny body, almost squeezing her. Era just looked at me with her twinkling eyes. I gave her a weak smile before zipping up the final luggage. Promise you'd come to Seoul and visit us? I asked her. I promise. Era is like my own grandchild. I wouldn't want to miss watching her grow up. Era is my 3 years old daughter. I was planning to take some time off after the divorce, but few weeks after it was finalized, I found out that I was pregnant. It was selfish of me to take off and not telling Jungkook about it, but the divorce happens when it was at the peak of his career. I did not want to give him another headache, so with my parents' blessing, I moved to London when I was 4 months pregnant. Deciding to move back is not an easy decision, but my dad has not been doing well at his health, and from what I heard, Jungkook parents are rarely at their old home, so the probability of bumping into them or even him is low. Do I plan on telling him about Era? I have no idea. Probably I will, but not when he has so many things going on with his life. We arrived in Seoul and were greeted by my parents who had not seen me for the past 2 years. They were in London during Era's first year, but then they moved back after I had managed to stabilize myself. Since BTS were doing really well at that time, his face was everywhere. Poster, billboards, QR pass. God, he is everywhere, I huffed. Right after I stepped into the driveway, I saw his house. It looked almost exactly the same as last time, but the house did look a bit abandoned since his parents only come back once in a while. I heard he bought them a house in Hanam Hill for them to be closer to him, but if you ask me, I think he's just trying to avoid the inevitable. My dad chuckled. But you are still close with his father? I asked. He nodded. We talk, but we avoid the subject altogether. After we unloaded the luggage, I decided to take a rest while Era is napping. I was watching TV when his commercial came up. Does she ask about her father? My mother suddenly asked from behind. I held Era's head and gently kissed her forehead. I shook my head. She stopped asking about him after a while. Are you ever going to talk with him about her, Ryan? She asked. I knew this question was coming because when I was in London, she never once asked about it. I knew once I come back, she is going to bombard me with all these questions. When the time is right, I will tell him, I assured her. It's been 4 years, Ryan. Don't you think he deserves to know that he has a 3-year-old daughter who has given up on asking about her father just because her mother is too selfish? My mother snapped. Those words stung my heart, and of course I had every right to answer her back, but it was the truth. I did not want Era to face the disappointment that I had to face when I was married to her father. I did not want her to always wait for him and he would just be a no show because he is almost stuck with other important things. I was trying to shield her from the hurt that I faced back then. Before I could answer anything, Era woke up from her nap. Mummy, can you please change to YouTube? I want to watch BTS. Yes, to make it worse, she listens to BTS. JK's point of view. After 7 months of being away with our new tour, it is finally time for us to come home, and this time around, since we really worked our ass off, the agency decided to grace us with 2 months break. Usually during our breaks, all of us would go on our separate ways and do some traveling, but since my brother Jeonjung is getting married in 2 weeks, I decided to spend my well-deserved break at home with my parents. When we arrived in Seoul, there were a lot of people waiting for us, and since we will be on a long break, the agency requested for a short photo ops at the airport. The session was going well before some girls started throwing them on Taeyong. Ryan would have hated this, I thought to myself. You okay, Taeyong? Namjoon asked as soon as we get into our van. He nodded, looking pissed. These are the things that Meena hates, Yoongi responded. Meena is Yoongi's long-time girlfriend, but because of what happened to me and Ryan, they decided not to go public even though they have been together for 3 years. I don't blame her though. You know things can get a bit crazy, Hoseok chimed in while shifting his attention to me. What are you looking at me for? I asked him, annoyed. He shook his head. This reminds me of Ryan. She must be glad to be out of this. Glad? I honestly have no idea because after the divorce was finalized, none of us bothered to keep in touch. But I know after that happened, she moved to somewhere for good, and to avoid bumping into her, I decided to move my parents closer to me since our parents were living next to each other at that day. But of course, there is not a day that goes by that I don't think of her. When I got home, there were quite a few family members that have arrived to help out for John Jung's wedding. Jungi point of view. Why didn't you bring Meena? Jimin asked. It's too risky. We almost got caught 2 nights ago and the agency paid the paparazzi a hefty amount of money to make sure it didn't get leaked out. Meena is okay with you guys keeping it a secret, he added. Not really, but no choice really. Vine gets harassed even until now and they broke up years ago, Jungi replied. How did you know Hoseok added? Meena still stalks her Instagram, but she doesn't really post much. I tried to talk to Woman after the divorce, but she made it clear to all of us that she doesn't want to keep in touch with any of us. We made our way to the restaurant and enjoyed the food that we used to eat every single day when we were trainees. When we were about to leave, we saw someone very familiar. A familiar person just few meters away from the shop, but that person is holding a toddler who is enjoying an ice cream on a cold spring afternoon. Is not that Ryan? Jimin asked. I tried to squint my eyes a bit to make sure that we were looking at the right person, and to our surprise, it was Ryan. Do you think that's her daughter? She must be already married then, Hoseok added. I tried to shift my attention to the little kid she was holding. The girl looked oddly familiar, and I was doing mental calculation between the date of their divorce and the rough estimation of the kid's age. She must be around 2 or 3, Jimin said. The three of us looked at each other and looked at Ryan again. And since they were walking towards our direction, all of us were contemplating whether to stay or talk to her. We were about to run off when we caught Ryan's attention. I honestly still blame it on Jimin's sudden change to blonde pink hair. He could be seen from meters away. Okay, maybe that's her nice, Jimin said, trying to rationalize the situation. Mummy, my ice cream dropped on the floor. Keep it cool, guys. Don't scare her off. I said, waving at her. Ryan reluctantly walked over to us while holding the little kid's hand. Mummy, that's BTS, the little girl said while pointing to us. Yes, Era, you wanna say hi to them? Ryan pulled her up. Ryan didn't get to introduce us to her daughter before her daughter started mentioning our names. Hoseok, who's a sucker for kids, asked if he could play with Era for a while and let me and Jimin talk to her. How long have you been back? I asked. Just about a week ago. It's quite a rare sighting to see you guys out in the open, she responded. Yeah, we are on a break right now, but hey, do you want? I would really love to catch up with you guys, but we are late for tea with my parents. She cut me off and said her goodbyes. Era asked for a few photos with us, and I managed to sneak a photo because I wanted to see how much of Jungkook does she resemble. That must be Jungkook's daughter. She looks exactly like his toddler photos. Jimin said, I think so too. I spent the entire evening cursing myself for bumping into the Three Stooges. I never thought I would bump into them since they are rarely seen in public, but I am so glad Jungkook was not there. Era was so damn happy to see them since she is such a big fan of BTS, but how do I tell her that her father is one of them? Out of three of them, I can sense that Yoongi figured it out because who am I kidding? Era takes after Jungkook's facial feature, her pouty lips, doe eyes, and let's not forget her sharp jaw. She did not get it from me. Are you going to tell him now that his friends already know about Era? My mother asked after I told her the full story, knowing damn well she'd push me into telling Jungkook about Era. I shook my head. I don't know. I guess I am safe for the next few days till they decide to tell him about Era. You must have a plan, right? You wanna know what my plan? What was my plan? My plan was to stay in London for as long as possible or probably not come back since his parents' house is still next to mine. I did not make any bigger plan because I was not planning coming back. I snapped, look Ryan, it's never my intention to bombard or push you about telling Jungkook, but it's been 3 years and both Jungkook and Era deserve to know about each other, but I understand. You went through a lot, but I really want you to think what's best for Era. She's almost 3 now. She is going to start asking about her father non-stop very soon. My mom said, and then she left the room. She was right anyways, but honestly after 3 years how do I tell him? Even 3 years after the divorce I was getting a lot of harassment by their fans. Some of them can be quite lovely but the rest are just vicious. I decided not to be active on social media as anymore after that and with Era around. I did not want anyone to find out the truth. I know he would be a wonderful father to Era but his circumstance won't let him. I was tired of sleeping in an empty bed, cold dinners, and whatnots. I do not want Era to expect that her father would be the same as everyone else's father, who could make it during ballet recitals, have time to teach her how to ride a bike and other things. I know he won't be able to do it because of his crazy schedule, but my mother was right. Era deserves to know who her father is. Era fell asleep quite early that night, and during dinner, she excitedly told my parents about meeting Yoongi, Jimin, and Hoseok, and she even said about wanting to meet the rest of them, especially Taeyong. Jonjang was here earlier today, my dad said while I was watching TV. Oh, why? I asked. He's getting married next week and has invited me and your mom to the wedding. I was about to ask if he knew about me, and my dad shook his head. I didn't tell him about you, but I thought you should know that his family will be living next door for the next few weeks for his wedding. Oh God, how do I run away now? Ryan, I am not going to tell you how to live your life, but I know whatever happens, you will make the right decision for both you and Era, not just for him, my dad added. My dad kissed my cheeks and left me alone in the TV room with my thoughts. I was reliving the night we decided to get the divorce when my phone chimed in. It was my Instagram notification. Youngsmi has requested to follow you on Instagram. Clicks accept. Youngsmi has sent a direct message to you. I can't believe you finally accepted my request. Me, about time. I guess I am sorry for being so awkward just now. Didn't expect to bump into any of you. Youngsmi, can me and Taeyong came over to catch up? Me now? Oh shit, I forgot. It's way past Tara's bedtime. We can meet some other time. Now is fine. She's asleep. Oh, anyways, but keep it to yourself. Always will be there in 20 minutes. Still the same place, right? Yep, I was close with all six of them when I was with Jungkook, especially Yoongi and Taeyong. Because out of all six of them, it was easier to talk to both of them since they are the blunt ones in the group. I just don't remember the amount of times I cried to Yoongi about the fights I had with Jungkook, and Jimin always asking me to be a bit more patient with Jungkook. Yoongi and Taeyong arrived after half an hour with a lot of snacks that three of us used to love to enjoy together. Based from the conversation that we were having during the first 15 minutes, I could tell that Taeyong doesn't know about Era, and after he excused himself to make a short call, Yoongi straightened up, asked me the question I was dreading to answer. Is she his? He asked. I took a long pause before answering him and gave a weak nod. I am guessing he doesn't know about her. I shook my head. I didn't know I was pregnant before finalizing the divorce. Only found out about it 2 months later since my period was never on time. Are you going to tell him? I asked. He shook his head. Look, Ryan, you might not know this, but the divorce hit him pretty bad, but the agency hid it very well. I made Jimin and Hosok promise not to tell Jungkook until everything is confirmed, and it should be heard from you. Thanks, Yoongi, and thank you for still trying to catch up with me, even though I straight up ignored you after I left. I hugged him. Are we all hugging now? Taeyong suddenly appeared. I signaled him to join in and he did. We missed having our old mom around really bad. The new one is just so mean. I stopped hugging them all together and looked at them in disbelief. New one? Jungkook has a girlfriend?